I'm really excited and welcome to introduce our next committee member, Mary Richardson, who was on the Teen All CT Reads Committee and suggested our next author and book that we're going to be hearing about, K.A. Cobell. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to hear a little bit about you as a person, as a writer, to hear about this amazing book that I read on a like a walk and like listen through Central Park a couple of months back, and we're so excited to hear from you, and then have Mary filter some questions from the Q&A. So our attendees, as KA is talking and as you're thinking, drop some questions in that Q&A so that we can get those answered. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Thank you. It is my honor to introduce K.A. Cobell. She's a fantastic YA author and enrolled member of the Blackfeet Nation. We are here today to talk about her 2024 book, Looking for Smoke, which is a YA thriller that will keep you guessing up to the end. Like our committee was so excited to read it. Like we were like, we were arguing and we're like, this is the top one of all the books we read. I also wanted to say huge congratulations to you because I know you have a short story that's featured in the YA anthology Legendary Fry Bread Drive-In, which just won two ALA Youth Media Awards. It is the recipient of the Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature, as well as the American Indian Literature Award for Best Young Adult Book. And with that, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Yeah, hi. Hey, everyone. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here at this launch event speaking to all of you. All you librarians are doing so much to connect readers with the stories that they need and are helping to open worlds to them. That's such important work, especially for the youth. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who read Looking for Smoke. It's so exciting to hear that it was chosen as the teen book selection for all CT reads. It's such a great initiative, and it's really an honor to have my book chosen by the committee. And I'm just so excited to have the chance to get it into more readers' hands. So thank you. As Mary said, I'm K.A. Cobell. I'm an author of young adult books, specifically thrillers. And Looking for Smoke is my debut. It came out about a year and a half ago. And it's been so fun to see the reception of it. Some people are surprised to hear that I was not always a writer. Um, I think it kind of came out of left field as a new hobby in my mid-20s. It it started as I regained a love for reading. In high school, I really only had time to read the books that were assigned to me in classes, and I think I hated every single one of them. Um, but once I finished college, I finally had the free time to read the books that I chose myself, and a lot of them happened to be young adult books, and they made me fall in love with reading again. I really resonate with the prevalent themes in young adult books of potential and figuring out your identity and where you belong and your strengths and what really matters in your life. And I reached a point where I really wanted to try writing my own stories in that setting and in that area. And through a wild and exciting journey, I went from trying out being a writer to being a full-fledged author. And besides that, I'm also a mom of two. I actually wrote the first draft of Looking for Smoke in 1 hour nap time chunks while I was home with my kids. And when I'm not writing or editing, you could usually find me playing pickleball or trying to garden and failing at it or being at one of my kids' sporting events. As Mary said, I'm also a member of the Blackfeet Nation. I spent half of my childhood in Montana and the other half in Washington State. So that's just a little bit about me. My book, Looking for Smoke, is a young adult thriller that follows four teens on the Blackfeet Reservation as they're grappling with the murder of a classmate who they each had a fraught relationship with. And because each of them were the last to see her alive, they all become suspects. If they want to clear their names, they're going to have to learn how to trust each other, even though one of them could be the murderer. We have the main characters are new girl Mara, who just moved to town and is struggling to find her place there. We have grief-stricken Lauren, whose sister has been missing for the last few months. We have class clown Brody, who's fighting against the change that all this trauma is bringing. And lastly, we have tough guy Eli, who has his walls up and he's keeping secrets, but he has his reasons. The novel alternates between each of those four points of view as well as a mystery perspective. So I would say on its surface, Looking for Smoke is a gripping thriller in which these teen suspects are trying to investigate and find the real killer. But at its heart, it is a story of resilience and community, grief and loss, and fighting for your loved ones no matter the cost. And this book is written for teenagers, of course, but I really think it resonates with adults too. The emotions in this book are so relatable. I think that we've all experienced loss or anger at some injustice at some point in our lives. And I think these characters will really touch people of all ages and hopefully help readers feel a little more seen and understood in their own ways too. The idea for Looking for Smoke, it first came to me because I wanted to write Blackfeet characters into a book. One, because I had never seen that growing up. I saw such little Native representation in popular media, and I don't think I ever saw a single Blackfeet character. And two, I have so much respect and pride for and in my Blackfeet culture. And I really wanted to be able to share that. My mom is white and my dad is Blackfeet. And so I come from a bicultural household. And I didn't grow up on the reservation like my dad did and like my older siblings did. But no matter where we lived, he always made it a point to pass on all his cultural wisdom and memories and teachings to me and my siblings. And I think that's really special. There were places we lived where many people around me had never even heard of the Blackfeet tribe. And it's a pretty interesting experience to have something in my heart that I hold with such respect and reverence that some people have never even heard of. To have something be such a deep part of me and have so many people not understand what that is, it's just a really unique experience. And that's one of the main reasons why I so badly wanted to write the Blackfeet culture and community into a book. I wanted readers to see the beautiful things that I've seen and to feel what I feel. Growing up, I didn't always have the confidence or the opportunity to truly share our culture. And so writing it into a book felt like a really special way to open up that part of myself. So that is where the seed for Looking for Smoke first started. But because I'm also a thriller writer, I knew that writing these characters into a murder mystery would also bring in the missing and murdered Indigenous women epidemic, or MMIW for short. And for those of you who don't already know, there is a prevalent problem in the US where Native women are the victims of violent crime far more often than any other group. 4 out of 5 Native women have experienced violence. The murder rate of Native women is 3 times more than that of white women. And in some locations, it's 10 times the national average. And in Montana, where Looking for Smoke is set, natives are 4 times more likely to go missing, comprising over a quarter of these missing person cases, but they're only 6% of the population. So that's a big difference. Also, 95% of these cases of missing and murdered Native people are never covered in national media. They just aren't getting the attention they deserve. So in Native communities, there's a lot of outcry about murder cases going unsolved and girls and women going unfound. So in writing the story of Native teenagers dealing with the murder and disappearance of girls in their community, I knew that this real world issue would absolutely become intertwined with my story. And because of this, I was actually a little afraid to write it, to be honest. I knew it would need a really careful hand to bring in such a sensitive subject matter. And I never wanted to take away from these real MMIW cases or to sensationalize the very real pain that Native communities are experiencing. So I knew it would need to be a very fine line I was walking between crafting this exciting fictional story and honoring this real world issue. But in the end, I knew I had to try. I knew that this was a story that needed to be told and that I could shine more light on the impacts that this crisis is having on real families. Mm. As I was writing it, I found that line of respect and care. It really came down to my characters. I tried to write them from a very real and authentic place so that their emotions would guide the story. You know, the cases in my book are fictional, but the characters' emotions are so real. The feelings that they have of their grief, the loss, this betrayal, this anger they have, those mirror real Native communities. And it's what they're feeling every day. So I think that all readers will be able to relate to these characters because of those emotions. And then in that way, they'll be able to relate to the MMIW crisis. It personalizes an issue that may not touch readers in their everyday lives otherwise. And that's so important because we need more people talking about it. Some people have still never heard of the issue. And for me, sometimes I find myself thinking, I'm just me. I don't always feel like I can do very much, but I can tell stories. So that's what I did. And just like the characters in Looking for Smoke, I wanted our voices to be heard. And I wanted readers to see us here and now in the present tense. And I wanted them to open their eyes to this crisis. But I also wanted to show the strength that we have through it. And I tried really hard to show the support that Native communities give to each other, to show the way we fight for our families, and, just bring them into our world. Um, with Looking for Smoke, the biggest wish I have for readers is that they will walk away from reading Looking for Smoke feeling something. I want them to feel for my characters and what they're going through. And I've considered it a really big honor to be able to write so much of myself and my family and my culture into a story. I put a lot of myself into this, childhood memories and family stories and um, powwow trips, the places we visit on the reservation. I tried to put all of that into this book. Like the memories the characters share and hold are memories that I hold in my heart as well. I even put a lot of my own family names from our family tree into this book as a way to honor them. I think there's something really powerful in knowing where I come from and knowing the ancestors who went through so much so that I could be here thriving. So some of the names you see in the book are actually family names like Arno, Big Crow, First Kill, and even the title of the book, Looking for Smoke, is actually my fifth great grandfather's name, which feels
Awesome.
really special to be able to share. Um, and thinking of names, I also wrote a scene into the book that closely mirrored the way I received my own Blackfeet name. Culturally, names are really powerful in the Blackfeet community, and I'm sure for most other tribes. Today, like everyone else, we all have our legal American names first and last. But we also receive an Indian name, a name in the Blackfeet language. Back in the day, that's all we had. You know, we had one unique name that in some way connected us to the natural world or to some great accomplishment. Um, our Blackfeet names are almost like a possession, like they belong to us. You have to receive it from an elder in the community who's someone who holds cultural knowledge and speaks the language. So when I received mine, it was this really special experience, and it meant a lot to be able to put it into words through a similar scene with one of my characters. Um, I'm going off on a little tangent there, but personal experiences like that, filled with true emotion, create a deeply relatable story, and it creates characters who feel like real people. And I did my best to fill that scene and others with these personal, authentic experiences and emotion so that I was writing every word from a very real place, which hopefully readers can feel. And writing from the heart like that is actually how I found my voice as an author. Um, Looking for Smoke is actually the fifth book I ever wrote. The previous novels were not amazing. I think some of them were almost there, but it wasn't until I started writing Looking for Smoke that I truly felt like this would be the book that would go somewhere. I felt my writing voice finally shaping into something unique and personal. And I think it's because of how much of myself I was putting into these pages. And it taught me how to write from the heart. So it seriously means the world to me that this book is the book that made it. To be able to see so clearly that there is an audience for Native stories and that people do want to see that culture and community, it means everything. It absolutely shows that there's an audience for our books and that we deserve to have our stories up on that stage, that our stories are needed and wanted. I wanted to write Blackfeet characters so that we could be heard and that we would be seen. And to get this platform and to see Looking for Smoke being chosen for initiatives and getting put on reading lists means it's working. I didn't always feel it when I started writing, but through time, I've discovered that I really have something to say, and writing books is the way I can do it. And I want to keep putting these Native stories out there. You know, I hope that the Native youth will be able to see themselves somewhere in Looking for Smoke. And I really hope that each Native kid will be able to relate to something in this book and to feel seen in a way that we didn't always get to see in the past. And like I said before, I hope the non-Native youth and all readers really will feel something in this book. I think one of the greatest joys of reading is experiencing something outside of yourself. And This book gives you a really beautiful look into the Blackfeet culture and a really important look into an issue that real communities are dealing with. So, thank you all for helping me get this book into more hands. I really appreciate you and the committee and the opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, excuse me. And we always talk about with CT reads, it's windows and doors, right? So we're trying to see in, and also hopefully a kid that is part of the Blackfeet Nation can connect to it, like you said. And one of the things I think that is always really important for a teen book, which you do so well, is that emotion. Like each character, like Lauren is so angry over the grief of her missing sister, and any kid can tap into that anger. Excuse me, I'm getting over cold. And then also, the identity issues that Mara is dealing with as being, kind of half in the culture and half out. And like, even though if you're like different from it, everybody has those. There's some universality I think that everybody can tap into. So thank you for doing such a good job with the nuance on that. And I'm just gonna say straight up, Eli First Kill is my favorite character. Like once we like he just like broke my heart into oh my God, you did such a great job. We have a couple questions, if you can bear with us for a second. So one of our questions is, who were your favorite authors when you rediscovered reading?
Well, I had several, but the one that really sparked that desire in my heart to create worlds was actually Divergent by Veronica Roth. I
Nice.
read that and I don't know what it was about it, but it just hit me and the romance in it. Four was like my favorite book boyfriend. I don't know why. It sparked something in me that I wanted to do that. I wanted to create characters that just pull on your heart and like a world that you just fall into and can read for hours. It was really inspiring. So I really loved that one. And then I think the book that really made me want to be a young adult thriller author was Sadie by Courtney Summers. That book will always be one of my top favorites. It just like the desperation you feel from the character is like so real. And that it sticks with you. That book is like always stuck in my head. So those are a couple of the most inspiring ones.
That book wrecked me when I read it. And when I was reading Looking for Smoke, I actually was feeling some Sadie vibes
Oh
because
my
I
God.
love how, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that hasn't read it, but we get alternating perspectives to this book. So if you have reluctant readers, it's a great book to give them because it moves very fast. Like the way you're able to keep the pace, it just blows my mind. Like I couldn't put this down, and I was in a reading slump last year, so this helped kick me out of it. But one of the viewpoints we get before we know who the killer is the killer, and they're listening to a native podcast on the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so we, as a reader, are getting more information, but we don't know who it is. So it also just drives you a little bit bonkers as you're trying to figure it out. Actually, is it this person? Is it this person? And this is one of the reasons I love YA thrillers more than like adult thrillers, because like YA authors, y'all are so good at like putting a twist in there that nobody can see. And I'm pretty good at pattern recognition. And I was up to the last. I was like, what? No way. Again, I will not spoil. We have one more question though. Uh, could you say a little bit more about your villain? This person's motives were very mixed, more evil because they were some good mixed in. How did you get this idea? Also, the ending was stunning. I really didn't see that coming. Wow! Exclamation point.
Yeah, well, I will say, I always tell people this, my favorite chapter in the whole book is the last chapter. That one was really fun to write. Yeah, and the motives, I think there were a lot of things I wanted to explore in this book. One of them being these complex motives of certain characters. How oftentimes we think of villains in books as being, capital V villains. They are bad people and they like being bad people and they just want to be bad people. When realistically, most of the time, when terrible things happen, they are done by normal people who made a mistake that put them on a certain path, or they are stuck in a corner desperately searching for a way out and they do something terrible because they felt there was no other option. There are always other options, but sometimes, they're just people who can't see a way out and they fall into this terrible place. So I wanted to explore like how do you get there and why? And I also really wanted to explore um like family dynamics and what would you do for your family? Like we are so affected by our relationships for good and for bad. You know, we we would do so much to protect our families, but I also wanted to explore like the line. Like, where is your line? Everyone's line is different. And I think that's all I can really say without
Really
giving too much away. But those are things that were very interesting for me to write through and put into the story.
awesome. Thank you so much. I think our time is at an end. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. And I hope everybody in the state, like who's a big YA reader, like picks up this book because they will definitely learn a lot of stuff. And it is just so good, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciated being here.
Yes, thank you. It is. Mary's not over exaggerating. I read that book and I was so tired because it was like the dead of night, but I just like couldn't, and I did the audiobook, so I was just laying there staring up at my ceiling trying to figure out what was going to happen. The end just it's a journey. And I also felt the Sadie vibes, especially with the integration of like the podcast into the story. And that's another book that just sort of stays in the back of my mind. So
Mhm.
thank you so much, KA, for taking the time. And I'm sure there was a lot of emotional labor that went into writing a book like this with experiences that are so close to your own. So we thank you so much for the work that went into the creation of the book and your time here with us today. And thank you, Mary, for being our facilitator for this section. And I hope you both have a really great rest of your day and hopefully not a freezing weekend.